Then there's Bit von Rheingold, who has the most actual words devoted to him in the book, mostly because of the chapter 54. Uh, and then Jessica thinks it's Big Frank because ultimately Big Frank seems to, at the end of the book, be the main character. But I think Paulie Maravelli is the main character of the book. He's also character zero in the Schneiderverse, fictive Schneiderverse. Everything seems to revolve around Paulie Maravelli, and event zero is the death of Paulie Maravelli, the killing of Paulie Maravelli. Everything seems to lead up to that, and everything seems to come out of that afterwards. And this will be in when I've done some books like this later spy book, you get a sense of that too. But so anyway, that's the general beginnings of the book, and the first book is the books, the four books within the book of A Norwegian in the Family, which is the book that contains The Norwegian in the Family, written by Manny Cole. So basically, you have four books within the book written by Manny Cole within the book that I wrote. So you have
That's an
Paul.
interesting distinction that you made there, though, with the main character, because I would argue perhaps the most important character is the Manny Cole Dan Schneider relationship throughout the book, and the metaphysical strain
Yeah,
that the book contains, more so than any of the characters in between. Simply because chapter 54 and then in later sections you can feel the strain go on. And
what
A Norwegian in the Family, and I think it begins in this opening disclaimer and onward about how you've used a better title with A Norwegian in the Family, and you see the strains from that early on.
Yeah, but it should be said, the character, the Manny Cole from in the first book is one of the three child narrators. We find out though in Tumbleweeds there's a fourth narrator called the Legend Teller. Well, who is the Legend Teller? That's never made clear. Um, and one of the things I do very well in my books is the use of different narrators. For example, in my spy book that I just finished, I reuse a couple of aspects from the Norwegian and tell it from a different point of view. And there are conflicts between Manny Cole's version that you read in the Norwegian and the stuff that's told by the spy, Elias Walker, in my spy book. But so Manny Cole emerged as a meta character in the Vincetti Brothers, in which he argues with my fictive doppelganger as to who's the author of Vincetti Brothers. We find out, though, that and here's the influence. I was greatly influenced by Hermann Hesse's works, his three or four great books, 25 years ago in my early mid-20s when I read them. And Steppenwolf starts off with the finding of the manuscript of the Steppenwolf's life. So the book Steppenwolf contains within it the written works of the Steppenwolf. That's clear here. I mean, I've never been one to. I mean, I freely admit where my influences and sources are. So that's taken from Steppenwolf and Hermann Hesse. So we find out that one of the other meta characters is the editor. I forget her name. There's a female
Elaine
editor.
Shore.
Yeah, what?
Elaine Shore.
Yeah, right. Elaine Shaw is the editor of, I forget the name of the press. And people will say, how can you forget your book? Well,
Elysium Press.
Yeah, Elysium Press. So I've written so many works and whatnot, it's hard to keep track of it. But yeah, so she is within the book of A Norwegian in the Family, talking about the publication of The Norwegian in the Family. Another meta thing is, in this book, we find out, for example, that Big Frank has died. In the very beginning of the book, we find out that Big Frank has been killed in 2014. And he's been killed basically because elements of the Maravelli family have found out after 40-some years, 46 years, that he was responsible for Paulie's death because they read it within the Vincetti brothers. So we have people reading books, just as in the Vincetti brothers, we have this little Mobius strip of reading about, for example, Henry Matsumi within the Vincetti brothers. Henry Matsumi is a fictional character, but we also see Henry Matsumi in his books, and he's my Japanese kid alter ego that's outside of the New York series of works, has read in one of the books called The Scorpion Swam. He's reading, I believe, the Vincetti brothers or A Norwegian in the Family, or one of those books, or maybe it's Tumbleweeds. So you have that Mobius strip. So I'm constantly twisting what reality is in there. And this is without a doubt the grandest example of that. And so Anyway, that's part of it. Manny Cole becomes more meta, but Manny Cole, we find out, is in a coma in this book. We find out in the fourth book, which is only 100,000 words, and basically is a series of related short stories that tie things up, that Manny Cole has actually died. And Manny Cole, just like Big Frank, the reason Manny Cole is in a coma and then dies is because he's been attacked by the Maravelli family, because he's revealed this, supposedly. So you have this whole twisting of the meta thing.